Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Boring AppSec podcast. Uh, Today, we are thrilled to have Ads Dawson with us. Ads is a staff AI security researcher at Dreadnode, but that title barely scratches the surface. He's a seasoned offensive security engineer with over 13 years of experience in offensive security and web application pen testing. Many in our community will know him as a foundational figure in AI security. He was a founder and the technical lead for the hugely influential OWASP top 10 for large language model applications. He's also a prolific open source toolsmith, building extensions for Kaido, Burp Suite, and other utilities that many of us have likely used. Now at Dreadnode, he's at the absolute bleeding edge, working on a team that is industrializing offensive security with AI agents. We are going to get into his journey from being a self taught OWASP child to shaping industry standards, the future of automated red teaming, and what it means to build the very tools that will define the next era of cyber conflict. Ads was also the lead author and owner of AIRT Bench, measuring autonomous AI red teaming capabilities in language models. This was a public benchmark data set and harness for LLMs attacking AI ML CTF challenges. Ads, super thrilled to have you here. Welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me. You are way too kind. No, thank you so much. It's a pleasure being here. You guys, I really appreciate your content. It's great. I actually started listening only as of recently, and then when you reached out, I didn't hesitate. Listen to Casey's episode. Casey's awesome. He's a great dude.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
stoked to be here.
Yeah. And before we can get started, is there anything that you would like to share about what you're doing at Dreadnode, the company you're at with right now?
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm working at a company called Dreadnode right now. We are basically we're at the forefront of bleeding edge and pushing models to their full capabilities for offensive cybersecurity tasks. So we have a lot of open source. We have our own products. So we have like offensive cybersecurity evals, which we term strikes. We also have AI red teaming as part of that. And really, like we're just trying to get as much research out as possible, and really like demonstrating the capabilities is really what's important to us with models. Primarily, obviously, we do that through offensive security because we're kind of a bunch of red teamers, hackers, coders. We're an gnarly bunch. It's actually founded by a role model of mine, Will, who is the former AI red team lead at NVIDIA. So we have like a blend of AI, ML, network, AppSec kind of security backgrounds.
Got it. Yeah, I think when I was in Vegas for the AI Security Forum, there was a workshop from your team about how to get started using the
Yeah.
Dreadnode SDK. I was very fascinated by it, and I think as far as I understand, it's an open source SDK that anybody can build offensive agents on. Is that right?
So very close. Really good question. Sorry, I should have mentioned that. I'm so good at it. I didn't see you at the AI Security Forum. Should have hit me. Anyway,
There's too many people working on too many things. Yeah.
Yeah, all good. There's too many shiny things. So basically, we have an open source LLM interaction framework, which is called rigging, which I am biased, but it is awesome. It has so much flexibility. It's very dynamic. It uses light LLM under the hood. So like you have a plethora of local or remote inference to use. So you can like equip any model of your choice. My favorite go-to right now, like my absolute homeboys, Kimi K2 is like super sweet and is that like nice balance of like cheap, but also pretty dope. But yeah, sorry, that's our LM interaction framework. So that's how like at the moment we're building agents. So like we mentioned like AI rating bench, I can't say AIRT for some reason. That is an agent built around using the rigging framework. So we like hook it up to like a Jupyter kernel. We'll give it access to be able to execute Python code, etc. Our SDK is actually kind of it is an open repo, but is the way that you hook up like your agent library, whether that's like rigging or something else, and you actually hook it with our platform. which is kind of like a holistic way of being able to form those offensive cybersecurity evals. So you can build things like tasks, scoring, measurements, and then you can like run that over and over. So like for another example, Shane and the guys from our capabilities team actually published a paper on Pentest Judge and Goad. And like I said, that's we dove through everything, right? So we've broken our platform a lot. But yeah, we're building all these benchmarks, like using our own products and showing how we can scale and build like very efficient benchmarks using this.
Got it. Yeah, that is fascinating. Awesome. Yeah. So I guess the first question I have for you is, um, how close are we to a scenario where an AI agent could autonomously discover and exploit a vulnerability to cause a systemic financial event? Right. Your own research shows automation is superior for red teaming. But do you think does the human penetration tester have a long-term future in an AI native world, or will they be relegated to a niche strategic role while agents do the bulk of the work? What's your take on that?
Yeah. So I actually, I really do try to listen to as many podcasts as I can. And I always kind of hear the question about people like, oh, is AI going to take my job? The way to like think about it is just a used AI as a productivity tool which you would use anything else. So like the term that I always use and I love is force multiplier, right? So if I'm using like, I don't know, if I'm stringing together like Subfinder and HTTPX or something to do some kind of like recon, like I use AI as like a wrapper to all of those, right? And then I might put that in like an agent harness or something like that. So like first of all, like I think there's always going to be room for like pen testers, bug bounty researchers, like a lot of the knowledge that has gone into model training data, even though the models obviously have like inherent capabilities, is obviously like this is all humans, right? Like we're seeing really incredible research come out from like my friend Caleb just literally posted one yesterday. Actually, just come to mention it because it's the first one I think about how he found like a recent CVE, like using like a bunch of like he created like a SAST flooding harness, and then verified with OpenAI. So I think there's very much room. I think we should kind of change the perspective on that and think about how we can like improve. Sounds really cliche, corny, but improve our own capability using AI, right?
Yeah. I mean, and the kind of the follow-on question I have on that is, I mean, the reality is that it's not like the industry gets to do all the red team that they want to. Most companies still do
Yeah.
way less red teaming than they would like to. Right? It's typically some. I mean, there's been talk of continuous red teaming for years now, but it's really more a jargon than a reality. So the reality is that as long as coverage and the amount of red teaming you have to do is way lower than what we'd like, there's room for automation to kind of help the same number of humans expand. And I think if you can go from 10% to 100% coverage, we still may need double the humans, but now is actually a possibility to get like really, really good coverage. And I think that's kind of what's exciting, whether it's like red teaming or threat modeling, any human, any human powered things, is that I think we get an option other than accept risk or spend a truckload of money.
Yeah, no, 100%. Like, so yeah, like you said, the ability that it lets you
Mm.
scale unlocks and tap new potential that you haven't had before, right? Which is a case for a lot of teams. I've got like a small team. Me myself, like outside of my day job, you know, typically whatever. Like I spend a lot of time in bug
Mhm.
bounties, so I'm using this same kind of research that I'm evaluating to perform like maybe low hanging fruit things like reconnaissance, maybe using like Neo4j to build like a mind map so I can like understand like the reconnaissance framework I'm looking at, mark things out of scope, and then start to like build those relationships. Things that like I can't load into RAM myself,
Yeah.
right? Like I only have a certain length of context. I can use like models to throw at all that information at, and it makes me much more proficient across maybe multiple programs that I wasn't capable before, or it kind of gives me like a very better holistic view of if I was just like maybe throwing up Kaido and running some Nmap and nuclei
Yeah.
tools in my terminal.
No, that makes sense. If I can just modify Anshuman's question a little bit, and because I kind of really like this question, is that if it's true now, like you mentioned, that LLM powered tools are going to be able to do a much better job at red teaming and supporting humans and act as a force multiplier, how should like a head of security think about red teaming now? Right? Because I kind of felt like we always had like a scarcity mindset with red teaming, saying, hey, we have very limited resources and therefore we got to be very careful with how we do red teaming. Does that kind of change? Is there like a lack of scarcity now? And if there's a lack of scarcity, then what's the right way to think about red teaming if you're like an enterprise?
Yeah, good question. So, I mean, like, augment your stuff with like as much bleeding edge technology as you can, right? So, like, within reason,
Mhm.
providing people access to these models, reducing things like shadow IT is like the
Mhm.
first thing, right? You don't want to be a block. Security never wants to be a blocker to anything, which is like the common problem. So that with AI can also be like a bit of an issue.
Yeah.
But I think in terms of like security, I'm like personally, I'm all about security through transparency. Like build, whether that's building relationships, whether that's something like a very defined process or a procedure. In kind of going back to the question, I think it's like for those high level CISOs or whatever, is like understanding these capabilities, like all these pieces of research that are coming out and being like, hey, this person did this with AI. They may have been able to do it without it. Like the capability might have been there before, but it may have take them like 4x the time,
Mhm.
right? Like you only have a certain amount of staff, whatever. Like this is like the reason why you should be augmenting your workforce by giving them the freedom to innovate with artificial
Yeah.
intelligence.
Oh, that makes
Yeah, yeah,
And
and
I'm so yeah, I'm sorry. I actually kind of missed on the first one. In terms of actually causing a systemic financial event, it's really hard to say. We actually have a funny term at Dreadnode, which we kind of called the Godzilla guy. If you've ever watched the movie, the original Godzilla, it's where like the expert comes out and everyone's like, wow, and everyone's kind of like mouth wide open. Which yeah, honestly, I think the capabilities are probably there. It's just about building the right harness, putting the right scaffolding together, which is a lot of work, which is kind of what everyone's like scrambling to do right now. Right? They've got like an agent which does maybe one thing. And it's like, okay, cool, this is great. How do I use this in like a production environment? Like I've evaluated a load of tools as well myself. So if you want to like throw like an OpenAI wrapper around SQL map, it's like, okay, that's great. But like, depending on the audience of that, like what is the next task of this? Like, and also as well, I don't know if we mentioned it, but like human in the loop is always going to be a big thing, right? Like full credit to the guys at Expo, what they were doing. And as far as I understand, they had like a lot of like human in the loop validation, things like that. So
yeah. So I think there's you use this term force multiplier, which is I think kind of very aptly describes, where we are in terms of automating red teaming or any other security function for that matter. Um, and I just wanted to also plug in this post that I saw from head of security at Harvey. Harvey is this, I think, AI native company that is kind of addressing the all the legal mumbo jumbo. And I think the head of security there, Tobias Boulder, he had a post about how they are using AI to do red teaming autonomously and continuously. And he mentioned they're able to do things like build a custom feature-rich implant and dropper that was able to evade state-of-the-art EDR. They were able to generate highly personalized phishing emails based on available information. Uh, Create a highly convincing phishing website, right? So on and so forth. So I think this is probably something to consider. Is red teaming has always been this function that required highly specialized skills and people, operators, red team operators who've been doing this, right? But now I think we are at an era where you don't need those expertise. You might just need a bunch of integrations and plumbing a bunch of systems together, and you can use AI to sort of do those or bring in those capabilities like you mentioned that. So I think, yeah, that
yes.
definitely resonates.
Yeah, that's super insightful. I think that's one thing actually that we kind of maybe all take implicitly for granted with AI. Like we're all learning new things, right? Like so
Yeah,
many people are building like extensions and stuff, like, whether it's like not even security related. And it's like, okay, cool. But the fact you've learned something, like for me, learning's always been a huge thing. After I ironically kind of dropped out of school because I was, yeah, whatever. But yeah, like for me, so I've just been able to like ask a model and be like, obviously, you don't take everything for granted, right? But if I'm asking the right context, be like, okay, teach me about this. Like, I know, I want to know about like parameter pollution with cross-site scripting. Like, why I have this like response, like, why am I seeing this? Like, get
uh,
those kind of personal response rather than like hours of Stack Overflow is just it's beautiful and it makes you better as a red teamer, pen
yeah,
tester, whatever, right?
yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
I kind of almost feel like the ability to learn is probably most important, and it's kind of gotten easier.
Yeah,
And the fact that you had to like learn things yourself is probably kind of set you up much better for being a rate teamer than kind of going through a set curriculum where you almost know how to learn things, or almost there's like a curriculum or there's like a set standard on how to do things. And I think in the world of AI where the knowledge itself is a commodity, learning how to learn is probably the most important thing, and I think that kind of makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, that's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah. Awesome. I want to move on to discussing some top 10 for like LLMs. So, we've all seen and heard about how bad prompt injections can become, right? Like we've seen some examples where a simple prompt or like a simple prompt injection can really result in uh, large scale impact of exfiltrating customer data and whatnot. So ads, I guess, based on your work with the top 10 and your red teaming experience, what is the next major class of vulnerability in AI integrated applications that you believe you're currently unprepared for?
Hmm.
That's a very good question. Feature dev. No, I say that I'm kidding. But I think to be honest, actually, I kind of put a spin on it. There's actually a lot of things that personally, there are top 10 that I actually disagree with. So I think prompt injection is a problem. But I don't agree that it's a vulnerability. Like prompt injection for me is like a mechanism or a method of delivering an exploit, whether that's like, exfiltration or something like that. Um, but in terms of like where it's going, the OAuth project, I think one of the reasons why it had such a good adoption is first of all, it was like tailoring around LLMs, which LLMs like as a subset of machine
Mhm.
learning is also kind of crazy to have like a top 10 or whatever. But it's like this is what the industry is like demanding right
Yeah.
now, right? Like everyone's putting a model wrapper around an application and like throwing a feature in to increase some kind of like productivity gains. So I think honestly with that we're kind of going from the shift of like we initially were like, okay, cool, like like training data poisoning and like model theft and like, okay, great, we'll like merge that into unbounding consumption because that's kind of like our traditional like API security that we've been doing because we can rate limit that so they can't take like the logics and stuff. And it's like, okay, cool. But now I think we're kind of like almost forced into this ecosystem where it's almost like I think I don't quote me on it, but we now have like a agent top
Yeah.
10 or something like that as well. So it seems to be all these like forks coming now, right? And it's just like it's patterns of where the industry is going. And the industry is going towards agents and autonomous, which means more workflows, more API calls, more functions. And for us as attackers, it actually means more primitives, which is great.
Yeah.
But from like a defender's perspective, your attack surface is just broadening. I think a lot of the stuff is still the same. And like of my own personal opinion, from like the maybe since like the ChatGPT boom, apart from like native, things like jailbreaks, I think a lot of this has been traditional security, which maybe has failed just based on the rapid acceleration of adoption.
Yeah.
which is kind of the case. So like, that's what happened with crypto, right?
Yeah.
And then like a lot of the crypto companies got jacked. Seeing like similar trends, like security is always the afterthought, blah, blah, blah. I think that's kind of where it is. So I don't think there's anything going to be kind of like new, novel, and pressing. I think a lot of like the research papers like are coming out are fantastic, and like those all have their own say. But I think just based on like what we're seeing right now,
Yeah.
that's kind of where I think that's kind of where we're heading.
Yeah, I think the point you made on prompt injection not being, does it have a place in the top 10 list of vulnerabilities or LLM issues that you've been thinking about is bang on. And I kind of feel like every OWASP top 10 has this problem. Like I'm just looking at the OWASP top 10 for web from 2021, and it's got like injection and misconfiguration, and it has insecure design. And I'm like, okay, how do those things kind of make sense? The same thing, right? I'm like, insecure design. I mean, like injection can't be insecure design. Like it doesn't really make sense, right? And I think I've come to the conclusion, or maybe it's a coping mechanism, I'm not sure, is that the the OWASP top 10 in the end is an awareness document of the, if you want like an appetizer to understand or to get started on a particular area of security, then the OWASP top 10 is a good place to start. Beyond that, I think it's very hard to assign any kind of logic to it. But it does the job. Like, it's got a nice ring to it. It's got top 10. It's got alliteration. It's got the brand name of OWASP. And, it usually well-maintained projects get a lot of eyeballs. So I guess, you're absolutely right. I don't think prompt injection is kind of an attack. I think it's a method to get to every other thing in the OWASP top 10, to be honest. Right?
Yeah.
But I think what it has done for sure is that increased awareness dramatically on what prompt injection can do. And I guess to that extent, it's done its job. But I'm with you 100% about the confusing nature of the OWASP top 10.
Yeah, I think the I don't know how to like word this. Like, it's not a problem, but like, let's say someone's like building a vulnerability scanner. It's like, first of all, the first thing it's like, okay, unless I'm gonna like use like the p-test the pen testing methodology, like no one's gonna do that. Like, it's so extensive, it's not always relevant, and that's like a lot of work. And it's like the first thing is like, okay, cool, let's just stick to like this top 10, and as long as we're good with this, like this is like a framework, and then we'll put it to market and be like, and then we cover like all these things, right? And that's like how I think that itself has almost made like the OWASP top 10 like somewhat sexy to CISOs and those people buying or making decisions on buying products, or all these compliance drivers, which, no disrespect to compliance, but like I've worked at so many security engineering roles in the past where like we've had to do like a compliance framework thing, and we've had to do something which doesn't make sense. And it's like, okay, cool, we're literally just getting this to get a checkbox, right? Yeah. We have like these other things that are on fire. And yeah, absolutely right. Like OWASP itself is not a methodology. It's just a recommended guide. I actually tell you just like a really funny story is when we were actually building the OWASP top 10 list, especially towards the start, and I was working like secure engineering jobs, and doing like penetration testing myself, and customers would be like, I'd be like, okay, cool. Like, what is the scope? Like, like, are you hosting the inference? Are you using remote inference? All this kind of stuff. And they'd be like, okay, well, as long as you just follow like the OWASP top 10 for LLMs. And I'd be like, and I would just go back and be like, back and forth. And then there's like no getting through. And it's like, okay, yes, we will use the OWASP top 10 for LLMs.
We'll just avoid prompt injection. And then we've done.
They're like,
right.
They're like, awesome, thank you. And it's like, cool, okay, sweet.
Yeah. I think we have, as security engineers and people who work in the security industry, we have to just deal with the fact that anytime we put out a list and the list becomes popular, it will become a compliance standard. Whether we like it or not, it's just going to happen. It has to be the OWASP law or something. That is just going to happen. You can't make a list and make it popular and not make it into a compliance standard of some kind.
100%. I think, you're so right. We kind of shoot ourselves in the foot there. And one thing actually that I actually did with, which was awesome, with my friend and kind of non-coworker at the time, Rami. So I actually built out like the AI section of the vulnerability taxonomy for bug crowd.
Oh.
So like submitting programs and stuff, and that was like a really cool exercise of like demonstrating like how you take those like AI ML vulnerabilities and fork them into like AppSec, and then how they can like do XYZ, right? Which was super cool.
Yeah. Glossaries over lists,
Yeah,
I guess.
we
Sorry, go ahead.
yeah,
Yeah.
and no, I was just going to say, I think we recently had Vineet Sai on here, and we spoke about this new scoring system, AI VSS, which is kind of like CVSS. So
Yeah.
yeah, it almost feels like the way our industry is handling, this sort of AI explosion is look at what we have in terms of OWASP top 10, and then kind of see, okay, how can we build something similar for AI related applications. And I think fundamentally that would make sense, because like at the end of the day, things are still pretty much the same security fundamentals and principles apply. You still have to secure your APIs and whatnot, right? So but again, like in terms of building products and being able to sell those products to companies and CISOs, you have to show how or what your product is doing, especially in this AI native world. And I think for those cases, having an OWASP top 10 for LLMs would make sense, right?
Yeah, exactly. You're so right with that. Like from a defender's perspective, just do what's been working in security from secure engineering side, like threat modeling, like abstract away like what AI and ML is as a system and all like the neural networks and stuff. Like forget about that. Like the first thing, be like, okay, cool. I'm putting an identity in my platform, which is like can perform a function, and that function is to like do XYZ right with third party. That's customer data. Like go back to things like threat modeling and stuff. I think
Yeah.
it really paid dividends there.
Yeah, and I have to say, I mean, since we love some spicy takes on here, I feel like OWASP is great. Don't get me wrong. I've been sort of following OWASP, and I've learned so much in my career through OWASP. But I feel like there isn't a need to come up with new top 10 or new frameworks for pretty much every new technology evolution. I feel like that kind of creates more distraction, to be honest, right? Like, so in order to give an example, right? So let's say a company is building AI native workflows and implementations and whatnot, right? So now they have to worry about OWASP top 10 for LLMs, but they also have to worry about top 10 for applications, right? And I feel like it just kind of overwhelms security teams. Like, as such, they're not resourced well enough in pretty much every company I've known. So yeah, I think there's something to take out from this conversation, for me at least, is I think all of these OWASP top 10 and frameworks and tools and scoring systems are great, right? But is it kind of creating a new sort of space altogether for companies to build and whatnot, or is it actually solving something meaningfully which like enterprises can just take and sort of go off of that? I don't know the answer to that, but just wanted to throw it out there.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I love that, and I'm actually really glad you said that. I'm also going to steal the spicy takes. I like to use shiny rocks, so I'm all about shiny rocks and spicy takes now.
Yeah, nice.
But yeah, no, I agree. I agree. Honestly, like when we initially started the list, obviously this is all unanimous, right? So like,
Yeah.
I was very much of the feeling that we stick to like grassroots, like typical else. Don't overinflate it, don't overcomplicate it. Try to provide something meaningful, and at some point there was like some people were discussing about like extending it beyond the top 10 and stuff, right? And you like I feel at this point you're just like injecting something just to inject it, like you said, like
Yeah.
providing that like critical impact is super beneficial. And I kind of used to feel the same. Well, I still feel the same way about when like I see like a new agent lib come out, and I'm like, okay, this is awesome. But like, I feel like there's so many now, and I'm in love with rigging anyway. But like, I feel like there's so many. I'm just like, this is too much. Like the feed is just insane, and I kind of was getting that same feeling as well recently about like taxonomies and stuff like that. Actually, recently, a friend with Jason Haddix and I was sat on his course, Attacking AI, the other day. which was awesome. And Jason and his team have actually put together like a nice. The reason why I like it as well is it's different from like just trying to like take a framework and trying to mold it into something else. Is that they've actually got like a prompt injection taxonomy, which is like completely separate from like here's like a bunch of vulnerabilities you should be worried about. You should do this and you should care about this. Okay, good luck. All right.
Yeah. No, I mean,
Yeah, no, I think, and I was gonna add to that. I think the stuff that Jason Addix does, I've been a big fan of him. His web hunting methodologies, right? Like, I think that's the kind of work I look for in terms of a practitioner, right? Like, if you can give me a methodology of how to go find prompt injections, as opposed to, okay, this is the OWASP top 10 for LLMs. Now go and find them and go and fix them. Yeah, so absolutely. I think big shout out to Jason Addix and team for putting these tools out there. Yeah.
Yeah, Jason.
Please go ahead, Sandesh.
Yeah. No, I think I was just wrapping up the conversation on the standard stuff. I just sent my all-time favorite XKCD on the chat, which basically says there are 14 standards and that's horrible, and we have to have a single unifying standards. And the next stage is there are 15 standards now, right? So I think it's kind of that constant need to kind of have a single standard, which kind of what leads to all these problems. But I guess we're not getting away anytime soon from this.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Let's maybe spend a few minutes discussing the Dreadnode's Crucible platform ads. I don't know if that's still a thing, but I guess what I'm interested in is in one of your papers, you use data from Dreadnode's Crucible platform to show that automated red teaming has a much higher success rate than manual efforts. Can you talk about this data flywheel using a community platform to generate proprietary data that validates your commercial products? Like, how central is that strategy to Dreadnode's vision?
Yeah, good question. So Crucible is definitely still a thing. It's not our prime position. At Dreadnode, like we do have like private kind of Crucible hosting and things like that for like challenges. We actually did an awesome one with the for the actually it was done at Generative Red Team 2 at DEF CON as well last year. Actually, I wasn't at Dreadnode then, but I was still kind of hanging out with them and fanboying them all. But yeah, in terms of our mission, I think Crucible provides a I think it's just like a staple of our DNA. And that's not like building a CTF and collecting data, things like that. It's more about like education and showing people how to equip themselves with the latest tools that we're building, which they can use to solve these challenges, right? And how they can augment and increase their gains on these challenges by using AI. So it's by no means like a huge product pitch from us. It was actually initially kind of the start Dreadnode, actually before I started, but since we've really shifted into like an actual enterprise company where we're doing like the offensive cybersecurity evals and red teaming, and Crucible just sits as like a great place where we can also host our own harnesses, right? Like if I want to do like an AI red teaming harness and I want to like, run some models against something, I can build a custom challenge in Crucible, which is like a great way for me to evaluate something. Whether it's something like Llama Guard, the Llama firewall thing, anything like that, then it's just a great kind of side tool for us. I think the archive paper as well was just to show people, like educate them on like AI red teaming as a human operator as well, right? And show the benefits of automated attacks versus manual. Like to hack AI, you've got to be using AI, like period. But then obviously we did the AI red team bench follow up and was kind of almost like ironically, we didn't plan this, but that was kind of a follow-up to show like, okay, cool, like you can do manual versus automated, but then look at when you literally just throw like model versus model, it's actually like much more effective, right? So if you like pull all these things together as a human operator, then that's my personal opinion on the best way to red team.
Yeah, and as a follow up to that, I think this is an open ended question in my mind. So speaking about harnesses and like CDF challenges and using AI to solve CDFs. I think there was a blog from Expo recently. I remember, and they kind of went over their methodology of how they found so many vulnerabilities in open source applications, right? Which allowed them to basically be the number one on the HackerOne leaderboard, right? And I think the way they described was they sort of uh, went and scout for all open source web applications that they could find, and they planted CDF flags in them, right? And then they sort of built their offensive platform in a way to see if their autonomous hacking system can actually find those flags or not, right? So it's almost like like you're awarding the AI model workflow a reward for like hacking for a reward. Do you, and since you've also been working in this space, do you find that um, that is a good strategy to improve your own models? I'm just trying to wrap my head around, okay, what does this approach lead to? Like planting CDF flags intentionally and then seeing if the systems can find it. Any thoughts, opinions on that?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question, and I'm actually really good. I actually missed Brandon's talk from Expo at Blackout
Yeah,
this year, and I'm really hoping it comes out on YouTube or whatever.
yeah.
Brendan, sorry, Brendan. I'm sorry, Brendan. If you're listening to this, give it the juice. Um, Honestly, from like building applications, like web harnesses myself, building verifiers is like the most difficult part of building the whole harness, right? And how you measure it and how you scale it, like our platform handle is all about, is about how you identify it. So um on top of things like using like a judge model, or like I employ like a triage model as well. So I kind of think about it like a bug bounty flow. But like I think with those flags also, as well as there's a side of it where I also kind of didn't think about it before, but like one of those flags could be as simple and as effective as like you as a pen tester, when you're creating your cross-site scripting payloads, you will inject like a certain canary into those. So when you're like looking to see if they've been like if they're like going into the DOM, then that's your canary, right? So I think those flags also serve that kind of purpose as well, which is really useful. Does that? I hope that kind of makes sense. But
Yeah, yeah. So it's
I
almost
never
like,
I never thought about this. It's like you kind of think about it from the
yeah.
other perspective, and you're like, okay, I'm going to inject the flag, and then the model's going to like hack into this server and get the flag. But it's not always the case. That the term flag is kind of misleading somewhat.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think, the thing that you mentioned about, in order to find if something has been exploited, right, you need to know what is the malicious payload you injected and where was it reflected or whatever it is, right? So, yeah, I think thinking of it more like from a canary standpoint to sort of validate and verify whether your attacks have been successful or not, that would probably make more sense as compared to, you intentionally, introduce a flag and then you see if the model finds it or not. So that makes sense. um Speaking about verifiers and like evals and benchmarks, and I know like Dreadnode as a platform sort of has that capability natively, right? Can you sort of help us understand, right? Like if I am a security engineer, hacking web applications, and if I'm trying to build my own suite of offensive agents, that can automate things like finding cross-site scripting, SQL injection, IDOR issues, etc., right? What how do I think about building an evals or like a benchmark to know whether the system is actually improving and working as expected or not? Like,
Yeah.
what is your mental model of how you build these things?
Yeah, very good question. So I'm going to plug our SDK here, because that's the way that our platform works, right? And it is super awesome, honestly. But like we define, we break down the overall goal into, so we start with like tasks. So like the task is it's recommended that the task should be small and concise as possible. So the task should not be find cross-site scripting in here. The task should be like take these credentials and log into the like username authentication endpoint. Then store these credentials in like a Neo4j Neo4j class, right? And then the next task is like, okay, take the credentials and then like use vision capabilities to look at like inputs on the web page. And it's like, okay, great. And you see like you're building all these tasks which you yourself are going through as a web application pen tester, right? Like you don't think about it at the start, but like when you first get the target from the program scope on the one book round, whatever, like this is the mental model you're going through. Like obviously you just implicitly don't think about it a lot of the times. You're looking at like inputs, you're looking at ways you can do like parameter pollution, maybe things like that. So like breaking those tasks down into like really small subtasks, and trying to be as concise as possible, is like one of the great benefits that I've seen. Like trying to overinflate and overcomplicate things, even though models have like huge context windows now, it's actually really disadvantageous to do so, because you just end up in this loop, right? You can't just say like for example, I actually just before I came onto this call, I quickly presented on the prompt or GTFO with Gaddy from Gnostic,
Yes,
and
yes.
which was good fun. But we've got a Bbot agent. Have you guys heard of Bbot before?
I've heard of
Yes.
it. Yes, yeah.
Yeah. So Bbot, so I was just like showing a Bbot example agent that we have. So we just hooked up an agent to Bbot and Neo4j. So like the first task is like, okay, perform like subdomain enumeration using the subdomain enumeration class. And then that agent will run. We can run like another asynchronous agent, or you can wait for that one to finish and start another one, and then be like, okay, take these subdomains, run them through HTTPX, and like give me the status codes, right? And then your next one could be like, look for subdomain jacking. Your next one could be like, okay, scan open targets with nuclei or something like that. And all these kind of little subtasks, that seems to be the recipe for success that I've seen, or at least is what we see best outcomes of, right? Same goes with like network. Perform a scan, see what's open, look for CVEs, etc.,
Yeah.
etc.
Yeah. So when you sort of walk through or like build these small like subtasks you mentioned, right? Uh how do we think about building the evals for these tasks specifically to know that a model did well on a certain task and did not do well on a certain task? Like
yeah.
how
Can I tag on to
yeah,
the question?
go ahead.
Just sorry, one addition to that, right? So one of the challenges that I've seen even when we build the evals is kind of like what kind of and how much ground truth to generate to even evaluate it against, right? So is there a hack that you've thought about where, especially for offensive agents, there is a way to kind of generate ground truth or synthetic data generation, which has kind of helped out in the past? Or are we kind of is just like a few key value pairs or a few a few short prompt is sufficient? Or are the agents so good right now that just a few short prompts will be more than enough, and you don't really need like a whole eval framework?
Honestly, like I've been using, this was in like the early stages. I've found cross-site scripting in live sites, like stored cross-site scripting where you can like exfiltrate cookies from like a simple like find an XSS exploit in this web page, and then provide it like the models are like really capable. This was maybe about a year ago. I remember like sharing this. Actually, sorry, no, it's a lie. I've been at Dreadnode like 10 months. This was like Dreadnode time in an awesome way feels like a long time. Feels like I've been there 10 years. But I'd say like I remember maybe about 6 months ago, I remember sending Will. I was so happy sending like cross-site scripting. Like I think I got him to like click on the link, and then I like stole his cookies, and I was like, haha. But yeah, like it doesn't really take much. There's not a huge amount of prompting. And I guess with like our platform, the way we're doing that is that we're using those different prompts and then obviously measuring those scores. So like whether it's a binary or whether it's like a rating. So if you've got like code, a good example we had one was just doing like it's basically code review, or even Portswigger Labs done one with Portswigger Labs, like testing the model's capabilities on that, which like you solved the lab, congrats, is kind of like the world is kind of a good one. But like the code review, like for example, like look at like the lines of code and then maybe give that like 30% of an overall score of 1. And then so you could be like lines of code, name the function, name the vulnerability, and all those three things could be built out. Does that make sense? So you get like a yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you get
So I guess what I'm sort of taking from this conversation is, you know, if anybody wants to build their own sort of agentic system, whether it is offensive, defensive, having some kind of a playground, right? In case of web applications, the Port Security Labs is a great example because you will actually know if you solved a l- lab or not. So and then throwing your agent system against that lab, and then building evals to see if the models were actually able to solve those labs or not, right, would be a way to know if whatever you're building is actually meaningful or not, right? Is my
yeah,
understanding right at a high level?
absolutely. So like if I
Okay.
like I've been building like a harness on like live targets right now, right, which I'm using, and I wanted to understand and just make sure that it's working. Like I want to, I don't want. I've got human in the loop and stuff, but I don't just want to like fire this at like Coinbase and then get like sued, right? Yeah, I'm kidding, but like it's true. Like people feel that and they want that control. So yeah, so like before I started sending out in the wild, I ran like a bunch of experiments where like I stood up like Juice Shop on a Docker container and I just like
Yeah,
got it to go to like localhost 3000 instead, right? And then I'm kind of measuring it that way, and then I kind of get myself as a very poor agent developer. Like I understand like where I'm at. Like I have a vibe at that point,
yeah,
and the
yeah,
vibe is good. Then it's time.
yeah. Vibe hacking.
Yeah, vibe hacking. Yeah, maybe it's a thing. Maybe
Anything vibe agent building, which is what I do these days.
shiny rocks, spicy talks, and vibe hacking.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
New
Awesome,
motto.
Aj. I think we're getting close, but I have one more question that I would like to ask you. So, you've described yourself as an OWASP child and are largely self taught. How has that community driven, practical learning path shaped your approach to security differently from those who came up more through academic and or more like formal channels, so to speak? This is very relevant in the current market as folks who are trying to land jobs can learn a thing or two about how you've shaped your career by just learning of sources available on the internet. So any sort of advice, recommendations that you have for people, who are trying to find jobs in this competitive market would be greatly appreciated.
Yeah, thank you. I think for me, honestly, education is really kind of strange. So I dropped out of school. I wasn't really a good student. Um, and for some reason now, ever since I took an internship and I started out as a network engineer, and then I moved into like network pen testing. That's kind of how I got into security. But like I was in networking like long before like Cisco ASAs were a thing, and we were still like on Cisco Pixies, like really old school and just absolutely terrible. Um, but for me, I just tried to sink my teeth into everything. I love to learn anything, which is why actually another reason that I mentioned earlier about like loving AI is that I can like learn how to write a function in Golang and give it a Python function or something like that. Like just having that capability. But in trying to answer the question, what's best, I think staying just trying to stay up to date as much as possible, but also cutting out the weeds. So there's a lot of people that I personally follow. Like really well established researchers. Like we've talked about a lot about like AI security, right? Like Johan from Johan's a friend. He's just had like a blistering August, right? So
Yeah.
kind of like following those specific individuals, but like really just getting involved in community events. So I was like really heavy into like network pen testing, and I wanted to get into web, and I honestly just kind of like I said, like OWASP was like kind of like this, like the thing that everyone knows about. And I was like, okay, cool. So then I just looked on like Meetup, and this is when I lived in Vancouver at the time. And I just looked on Meetup, and I saw like OWASP chapter because I put in just like hacking or something into Meetup, and I found an event. And then I met the people, and they were all awesome. And then we did like late night like CTFs together. And then I
Nice.
was like, okay, cool. Like, I want to be on the chapter lead. Like, I want to help organize these events. Like, I want to speak at these events. And then he's kind of gaining this momentum as you go along. So, like, I guess my advice is just to try and get stuck in as much as possible, but also like sometimes put down the textbook, even though I think that's really beneficial, and just like get hands-on, like use the technology.
Yeah,
Like a
hands-on.
lot of people ask me about like AI security or like, like prompt injection and stuff. And I'm just like, okay, cool. Go to a model right now and just try and prompt inject it. Like just play with it. Like you need to get that hands-on feel with it. You get that same reward from CTFs and things like that as well, right? Which is something I love. So yeah, just getting hands-on as much as possible, trying to follow the right people, which I know is kind of, I apologize, it's easy for someone to say that, and then someone's like, okay, we'll follow who?
Yeah.
I think a lot of those, like Simon Willison, for example,
That's
is
right.
is another great one. So yeah, and just try and surround yourself with other people who want to learn as well.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think so. Like those people push you.
Yeah. I mean, I
in a great way. Right?
Yeah, I kind of feel like the point you made about the follow the right people is like really important. There's just so much data and signal thrown at you these days. I kind of feel like curation is like an underrated skill. If you're actually able to curate your feed or the people you follow or the people you listen to, the quality of knowledge you get is like much higher, right? And another example of that, I think you kind of spoke about OWASP as well, is kind of the OWASP Slack channel. I mean, I don't like saying this, but just hanging around the OWASP Slack channel, you'll learn a lot. You don't even, if you're like an introvert, if you really don't want to talk, if you don't want to comment on too many things that are going on, it's just like an amazing dump of information that's available there where you can get started. And then of course the people are really are really helpful if you want to kind of interact with them. The third hack that a friend of mine kind of told me is that there are a few fantastic newsletters which all of us read, obviously, I know from Daniel, from Clint, etc. But kind of almost using newsletters, these weekly newsletters as a search engine has kind of been really interesting. So if I want to learn about a topic, I almost go to like TLDRSec and then kind of look for the topic within TLDRSec, because he's probably got a list of 5 tools, 4 articles, and 10 something else to kind of think about, and that kind of acts as a starting point. And you don't even have to talk to anyone for that, right? But once you get comfortable, you can obviously interact with a lot of folks in OWASP and other communities.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. It would be quite a funny exercise for us to all compare like subscriptions to newsletters, and I bet we got very similar. Like I get Clint's all the time, and I like scroll through it, and I'm like, wow, this sounds really cool, and it's like a repo, and I'm like, okay, cool, I'm gonna fork this. One thing, a couple of things actually, I will mention. So, being an ambassador for Kaido, we have an awesome Discord community. So. Like people are talking about like hacking and tips and tricks, not just like product launches, things like that. So that's a great community, but also the Critical Thinking Bug Bounty podcast as well.
Yes.
Like
Joel and
it's actually Justin and Rezo now.
Yes, that's right.
Joel was, but just like you guys producing great content, and there's a good Discord there. They're close friends as well. So but there's a two. Well, there's so many. Like depends what kind of area security, and also listen to your guys' awesome podcast.
Thank you. We appreciate it. No, I heard from random people in Vegas that they actually listen to the entire episode. I'm like, are you kidding me?
Dude, when you reached out, I was like, yeah, hell yeah.
Yeah. No, man, that's always good to know that people are listening and we're able to provide some value.
If they're listening at the 55th minute of the podcast, I think they're already captive. They're a captive audience already.
Yeah. Well, awesome, folks. I think this is it. Thank you so much, Ads, again, for spending some time with us and sharing your knowledge and your experiences. And then we hope to see you around.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, guys. I really appreciate you.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us. If you like the show, please share this with your friends and colleagues. If you have any questions or comments, you can reach Anshuman on Twitter at Anshuman_BH. That's ANSHUMAN_BH. And me, Sandesh, at Jubba on Jeans. That's JUBBAONJEANS. See you next time.